the economy in the United States over the last 30 years, as a direct consequence of Reaganomics, has gone from being an economy pre-Reagan that pretty much worked fairly well for the average working person. We had a quarter of the workforce was unionized. Unions set the floor for wages, so about half the American workforce had pensions and vacations and enough pay that they could raise a family and put the kids through school and all kinds of cool stuff. You had, basically the economy was working. We had strong economic growth in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. I know people say, well, what about that Jimmy Carter inflation? Yeah, that was wringing out the cost of Vietnam. Things happened, but still, you look at the decade as a whole, those decades were all stronger than the 80s or the 2000 to 2010 decades, than the Reagan decade or than the Bush the two Reaganomics decades. In terms of overall GDP growth, jobs, however you want to measure it. And what we're seeing is crony capitalism and monopoly capitalism. The crony capitalism is, hey, I'll spend Berkshire Hathaway, spend a few $1 million lobbying, we'll make a few billion. And it's not just Berkshire Hathaway. It's virtually every major corporation in America. Lobbying has become one of the largest and most profitable businesses in this country. Banking, which is where banks are supposed to be in the business of issuing credit cards, making sure that you can get a mortgage on your home, taking your savings accounts and paying you interest on them and offering you a checking account. I mean, banking is pretty simple, straightforward stuff. Why is it that the banks in the back room have a casino running where the bankers are betting on whether or not some other thing that they're doing is going to succeed or fail? I mean, we have 6 banks now that represent more than 60% in terms of their asset value and the cash flowing through them, more than 60% of the U.S. economy. This is incredible. 63%, 6 banks. You have a handful of corporations that control virtually all of the media in the United States. Fewer than a dozen companies control, over 11,000 magazines. The majority of the newspapers read in the United States, the majority of the radio and television stations, and the radio and television networks. You've got a handful of companies, again, 6 companies, 7 companies arguably at the most, who control most of our telecommunications in this country, whether it's the Internet or whether it's telephone. You have, name an industry, steel, agriculture. In the agriculture industry, it's like 3 or 4 corporations control more than 70% of the ag sector. On and on it goes. Every major sector in this country, as a result of Ronald Reagan in the 1980s stopping the enforcement of the Sherman Antitrust Act, which prevented too big to fail companies in any industry. Now, we're all freaked out about too big to fail in banking. It's happening everywhere. Only it's not that it's too big to fail because it'll take the economy down like banks do. It's too big to fail because, well, fail is maybe the wrong word, too big to exist, because these large corporations operating hand in hand, hand in glove with government regulators that they have been able to buy off over the years, and particularly with senators and members of the House that they've been able to buy off over the years, these giant corporations have created an oligarchy in this country. We no longer have, or we're on the edge of no longer having government of, by, and for we the people in the United States. We have government of, by, and for very, very large transnational corporations who are making money off people being in this country illegally and being afraid to confront their employers about their working conditions, or even, God forbid, that they would even mention the word unionize, who are making money off the fact that in France, where the telco companies, the company that carries the cable into your house or the telephone pair into your house or the fiber into your house, they are required. And it's not just France. I just happen to know the numbers for France. It was in an op-ed in the New York Times last week. But this is similar over most of Europe and in South Korea and Japan and other industrialized countries. In France right now, for $33 a month, you get unlimited calling to over 70 countries. You get almost 100 channels of high-def TV. which, I mean, is all there is, right? You get the whole spectrum in French language. You get all the high-def TV, and you get internet download speeds of 20 gigs reliable. I mean, I got a company that advertises to me that I'm paying for 5 gigs down. I'm lucky if I can get 2 steadily, megabytes, excuse me. You get 20 megabytes of downloads or megabits of download speed, and it's $33 a month. If you want the same thing in the United States, it's $200. And in addition to that, for that $33 a month, you get both voice and data on your cell phone anywhere in Europe on an unlimited basis. Now, that's not because the government is regulating as insane to the French companies, the French telco companies, you must charge $33 a month. No, it's because the French government is saying to the companies that own the cell towers and use the public rights of way. They're saying that wire going into your house, that cable going into your house, that fiber going into your house, or that cell signal coming into your house is all coming over public rights of way. So if you're the company that maintains and operates that, you can make a small profit doing that, but you have to make it available to any company that wants to compete with you selling services. So the cable coming into your house, you can pick from 20 or 30 different providers for your cable TV. You can pick from a dozen different telephone companies. You can pick from 100 different internet providers. And so there's actual competition because the too big to fail, the too big to exist, the monopoly capitalism that we have here in the United States doesn't exist in France. And so you and I are paying $100, $150, $200, $250 for the aggregation of our telephone service, our cell phone service, our internet service, and all that. In France, $33. It's because of competition.